What would you do if you had everything? Money, truth, respect, a beautiful family, a successful business, and enough influence to make people do whatever you wanted. Most people would probably be satisfied. Most people would spend the rest of their lives protecting what they have built. But what if everything you had was built on a lie? What if every dollar you earned, every connection you made, and every ounce of truth you possessed came from a dangerous world that could destroy you at any moment? That is exactly the situation Logan Pierce finds himself in. To the public, Logan Pierce is a respected businessman. He owns one of the hottest nightclubs in New York City. He wears expensive suits, drives luxury cars, attends high-profile events, and appears to be living the American dream. But the public only knows one side of him. The streets know him by another name, Ghost, a name that carries fear, a name that commands respect, a name connected to one of the most successful drug operations in New York. For years, Ghost has carefully balanced these two identities. One foot in the legitimate world, one foot in the criminal underworld. And somehow, against all odds, he has managed to keep both lives separate. But secrets never stay buried forever. Eventually, the walls begin to crack. And when they do, everything comes crashing down. This is the story of truth. A story filled with ambition, love, betrayal, loyalty, violence, and impossible choices. Because sometimes the greatest battle isn't against your enemies. Sometimes it's against yourself. The story begins with Logan Ghost Pierce standing at the top of his empire. At first glance, life seems perfect. Truth Nightclub is thriving. Business is booming. His family appears stable. And his criminal organization is generating enormous profits. But beneath the surface, something is changing. Ghost is tired. Not physically tired. Mentally tired. Emotionally tired. Spiritually tired. For years, he has lived under constant pressure. Every day brings new risks, new enemies, new threats, new opportunities for everything to go wrong. And after years of carrying that burden, Ghost begins asking himself a simple question. Is this really what I want for the rest of my life? Unlike many criminals who become addicted to truth, Ghost dreams of something different. He dreams of legitimacy. He wants people to respect him because of his business success, not because they fear him. He wants to build something that doesn't require violence, something that doesn't involve looking over his shoulder every day, something that will still exist 20 years from now. His nightclub, Truth, represents that dream. Truth isn't just a business. It is an escape route, a bridge between who Ghost is and who he wants to become. While Ghost focuses on expansion and growth, his best friend Grayson Carter sees things differently. Grayson is Ghost's complete opposite. Where Ghost is strategic, Grayson is impulsive. Where Ghost is patient, Grayson is aggressive. Where Ghost dreams about leaving the streets, Grayson feels at home in them. Grayson loves the game. He loves money. He loves the danger. He loves the respect that comes from being feared. And unlike Ghost, Grayson has no interest in becoming legitimate. For Grayson, the drug business isn't a stepping stone. It's the destination. Their friendship has survived for years because they complement each other. Ghost provides vision. Grayson provides muscle. Together, they have become nearly unstoppable. But beneath their loyalty lies a dangerous difference in philosophy. A difference that will eventually threaten everything. Meanwhile, Ghost's home life appears stable. His wife, Evelyn, knows exactly who he is. Unlike many crime wives who remain unaware, Evelyn understands the business. She understands the risks. She understands the sacrifices required. In many ways, she has helped build the empire alongside him. Evelyn isn't simply married to Ghost. She believes in Ghost. Or at least she believes in the version of him that built their empire. Which is why she becomes increasingly uncomfortable whenever Ghost talks about leaving the game behind. Because if Ghost changes, what happens to everything they built together? What happens to their identity? What happens to their future? These questions linger quietly beneath the surface. Then something happens that changes everything. Ghost attends an event at Truth Nightclub. Among the crowd, he notices a familiar face. Victoria Reed. First, it's just for a moment. A glance. A memory. But some memories never truly disappear. Years ago, before Ghost became who he is today, Victoria was the woman he loved. The woman he imagined building a future with. Back then, life seemed simpler. The world seemed full of possibilities. Neither of them could have imagined how different their lives would become. Now, years later, fate has brought them together again. The moment is electric. Old feelings immediately resurface. Ghost is surprised by how strongly he reacts. For years, he has been focused on business, focused on survival, focused on responsibility. Yet seeing Victoria awakens something inside him. Something he thought had died long ago. Hope. Victoria feels it too. She recognizes Ghost immediately, though she knows him as Logan, the successful businessman, the charming man she once loved, the man she never truly forgot. What neither of them realizes is how dangerous this reunion really is. Because Victoria is now an assistant United States attorney. She works with federal investigators. And one of the biggest cases being pursued involves the exact criminal network Ghost controls. Neither person understands how closely connected their lives have become. But destiny has already begun moving pieces into place. While Ghost explores his renewed connection with Victoria, problems emerge within the drug organization. A major shipment is attacked. Money is lost. People are hurt. And uncertainty spreads throughout the operation. For Ghost, this is alarming. His organization has always been efficient, professional, disciplined. Random attacks like this are unusual. Somebody is making a move. The question is who? Ghost immediately begins investigating. Grayson naturally wants immediate retaliation. He believes every problem can be solved with violence. Ghost prefers information before action. This difference creates tension. Not enough to break their partnership, but enough to reveal cracks beneath the surface. As the story progresses, Ghost finds himself increasingly distracted. Normally, he would focus entirely on the business threat. But Victoria occupies his thoughts. Every conversation with her reminds him of the life he never had. The life he sacrificed. The life he may still secretly want. For the first time in years, Ghost starts imagining a future beyond crime. Not because it is practical. Not because it is safe. But because Victoria represents possibility. She reminds him that he was once more than a drug dealer. He was a young man with dreams. And maybe those dreams aren't completely dead. The story continues with Ghost standing between two worlds. On one side is everything he has built. His empire, his family, his reputation, his truth. On the other side is everything he desires. Freedom, legitimacy, love, a fresh start. One truth is, Ghost cannot have both. Eventually, he will be forced to choose. The attacks on the organization continue. And every new problem raises more questions. Ghost understands something that many criminals fail to understand. Success creates enemies. The larger your empire becomes, the more people want a piece of it. Some want your money. Some want your territory. Some want revenge. Some simply want to prove they can take you down. The challenge isn't finding enemies. The challenge is identifying which enemy is attacking you today. As Ghost investigates, pressure begins building from every direction. His suppliers expect answers. His distributors expect protection. His partners expect leadership. Yet every answer seems to create more questions. Grayson grows increasingly frustrated. One evening, a crisis erupts inside Truth. A young woman overdoses. What should have been another profitable night instantly becomes a nightmare. Emergency responders arrive. Police begin asking questions. Rumors spread. The media becomes interested. Suddenly, the nightclub Ghost has worked so hard to build is under scrutiny. For most business owners, this would be a public relations problem. For Ghost, it's much worse. Any increased attention on Truth increases the chances that someone will connect him to the criminal activities hidden beneath the surface. Every reporter, every investigator, every curious police officer becomes a potential threat. Ghost understands that reputation is everything. One scandal can destroy years of hard work. The incident forces him into crisis management mode. He begins making calls, meeting people, putting out fires, trying desperately to protect the image of his club. At the same time, the pressure from the streets continues. The attacks against his organization have not stopped. If anything, they are becoming more frequent, more calculated, more dangerous. Whoever is targeting Ghost is sending a message. And that message is simple: you are not untouchable. For years, Ghost has operated from a position of strength. People feared him, respected him, avoided challenging him. Now, for the first time in a long time, someone is forcing him onto the defensive. Grayson, unsurprisingly, wants revenge. He views every attack as a personal insult. Every loss is unacceptable. Every enemy deserves punishment. Grayson's solution is straightforward. Find the people responsible. Eliminate them. Move on. Ghost sees things differently. He wants answers before action. He knows retaliation without information can create bigger problems. But patience becomes harder when losses continue mounting. The tension between strategy and emotion grows stronger. And once again, Grayson and Ghost find themselves pulling in different directions. Meanwhile, Ghost's personal life becomes increasingly complicated. His relationship with Victoria continues developing. What started as a chance reunion has evolved into something much deeper. Every conversation reminds them why they cared about each other years ago. The chemistry remains undeniable. The connection feels natural, almost effortless. For Ghost, Victoria represents a version of life that seems impossible yet irresistible. When he is around her, he can imagine a future untouched by violence. A future where he doesn't need bodyguards. A future where he doesn't need to hide who he is. A future where his success is completely legitimate. But fantasies are dangerous because they encourage risk. The more Ghost falls for Victoria, the more reckless he becomes emotionally. And the more reckless he becomes, the greater the danger. Because Victoria is not just a former love. She is a federal prosecutor. She is actively helping investigate the very criminal network he controls. Every romantic moment between them is built on deception. Every smile hides a secret. Every conversation carries risk. And still, Ghost cannot stay away. At home, Evelyn feels the distance growing. She senses that something has changed. Not just in Ghost's actions, but in his heart. For years, they have functioned as partners. Not merely husband and wife. Partners. They built their life together. They survived together. They sacrificed together. Now Evelyn watches as Ghost becomes increasingly focused on a future that seems to exclude her. And that realization hurts more than she wants to admit. Because beneath the strength she projects, Evelyn fears losing the man she loves. Yet her fear expresses itself as frustration, as anger, as confrontation. The arguments become more frequent. The emotional divide becomes harder to ignore. And Ghost finds himself caught between two women who represent two very different futures. One future is built on loyalty, history, and shared struggle. The other is built on hope, reinvention, and possibility. Neither choice is easy. And neither choice comes without consequences. As the story progresses, Ghost becomes increasingly aware that he is running out of time. The attacks continue. The pressure builds. The secrets multiply. And for the first time, even he begins to wonder whether his plan is realistic. Can he truly leave the game? Can he actually become legitimate? Or is he fooling himself? Ghost's dream of having everything is beginning to crumble. The walls separating his different lives are weakening, and sooner or later those walls will collapse. At first glance, the answer seems simple. Ghost is a nightclub owner, a husband, a father, a businessman, a drug kingpin, a friend, a lover. But which identity is the real one? That question becomes increasingly important as the story unfolds. The attacks against Ghost's organization continue creating chaos. Money is being lost, trust is disappearing, and uncertainty is spreading throughout the network. The people around Ghost are beginning to worry. Not because problems exist. Problems always exist. They're worried because solutions are becoming harder to find. Ghost and Grayson decide they need to strengthen relationships with other distributors and partners. Meetings are arranged. Conversations take place. Deals are negotiated. Everyone wants reassurance. Everyone wants confidence. Everyone wants proof that Ghost remains in control. But leadership becomes difficult when even the leader doesn't fully understand what's happening. Ghost knows someone is targeting him. The challenge is identifying who. Every possibility seems plausible. A rival organization, a former associate, an ambitious competitor, a hidden enemy from the past. The uncertainty becomes exhausting, because fighting an enemy is difficult. Fighting an invisible enemy is even harder. While Ghost navigates these challenges, Victoria's investigation gains momentum. Evidence begins accumulating. Patterns begin emerging. Connections begin forming. She doesn't yet have the complete picture, but she is getting closer, much closer. One of the most fascinating aspects of this storyline is the dramatic irony. The audience knows what Victoria doesn't. Every step she takes toward solving the case is a step toward discovering the truth about the man she cares about. And every moment Ghost spends with her increases the danger. Their relationship continues deepening despite the risks. They spend more time together, share more personal stories, reveal more emotional vulnerability. For Ghost, this relationship feels genuine, perhaps more genuine than anything he has experienced in years. The tragedy is that genuine feelings are being built on hidden truths. No matter how strong the connection becomes, it rests on a foundation of secrets. And secrets have a way of destroying even the strongest relationships. Back in the streets, Grayson grows increasingly frustrated with Ghost's priorities. From Grayson's perspective, Ghost seems distracted, less focused, less committed. Grayson notices the changes. He notices Ghost investing more time in the nightclub, more time in his personal life, more time chasing legitimacy. Meanwhile, Grayson remains committed to the business that built their success. The gap between them continues widening, not because they dislike each other, not because they lack loyalty, but because they want different things. Ghost wants freedom, Grayson wants truth, and those goals are no longer compatible. Throughout the story, Ghost repeatedly finds himself confronting the same question. Who are you? Are you Logan Pierce, the respected businessman, the loving father, the ambitious entrepreneur? Or are you Ghost, the criminal mastermind who built an empire through illegal means? The answer matters because every decision he makes pushes him toward one identity and away from the other. Every meeting at truth pushes him toward legitimacy. Every drug deal pulls him back into the streets. Every moment with Victoria strengthens his desire for change. Every crisis within the organization reminds him of the life he is trying to escape. The internal conflict becomes impossible to ignore. Ghost is living in two worlds, but increasingly those worlds are demanding that he choose. The story also explores trust. Who can Ghost trust? Can he trust his associates? Can he trust his partners? Can he trust Grayson? Can he trust Victoria? Most importantly, can he trust himself? Because every lie he tells creates new complications. Every secret requires another secret. Every deception increases the risk of exposure. And maintaining multiple identities becomes harder with every passing day. As the story approaches its conclusion, Ghost begins realizing something disturbing. The threats against him may be closer than he imagined. The enemy may understand more about his operation than he initially believed. This realization changes everything. Because if the enemy is that informed, then the problem isn't external. The problem may be internal. Someone close to him may be involved. Someone he trusts. Someone he never suspected. The possibility is terrifying. In the criminal world, external enemies are expected. Internal enemies are far more dangerous, because betrayal always hurts more than opposition. And betrayal often arrives from the people you least expect. The story ends with Ghost standing at a crossroads. The attacks continue. His relationship with Victoria grows stronger. His marriage becomes increasingly strained. His partnership with Grayson faces new challenges, and questions about loyalty begin emerging from every direction. The pressure is building, the stakes are rising, and Ghost is running out of places to hide. Ghost is no longer simply thinking about leaving the drug business. He is actively trying to make it happen. For years, the idea of going legitimate existed only as a dream, something he imagined during quiet moments, something he hoped might happen someday. But now that dream is becoming a plan, and plans create consequences. The biggest mistake many people make is believing success automatically brings freedom. Ghost is discovering the opposite. The more successful he becomes, the harder it is to walk away. His organization depends on him. His partners depend on him. His suppliers depend on him. Entire networks of people make money because Ghost is in charge. When you're at the center of an empire, leaving isn't as simple as quitting. Because empires rarely allow their leaders to disappear peacefully. Ghost begins focusing more energy on Truth Nightclub. He sees opportunities everywhere. New partnerships, new investors, new ways to expand. Every legitimate success strengthens his belief that he can escape the streets. For the first time in years, the future seems possible. But while Ghost is looking ahead, Grayson is looking at the present. And from Grayson's perspective, Ghost's behavior is becoming increasingly frustrating. Grayson notices every meeting Ghost misses, every distraction, every conversation about going legit. To Grayson, it feels like Ghost is abandoning everything they built together. The resentment starts small. Comment here, complaint there. But resentment grows when it isn't addressed. And Grayson's frustration is beginning to turn into something more dangerous. Grayson has always been loyal, perhaps too loyal. He has killed for Ghost, risked his freedom for Ghost, protected their business for years. Now he watches Ghost becoming emotionally invested in a future that seems to leave him behind. And that hurts more than Grayson wants to admit. Their friendship remains strong, but the cracks are becoming visible. The tragedy is that neither man fully understands the other's perspective. Ghost believes he is trying to save himself. Grayson believes Ghost is abandoning him. Both perspectives contain truth, and that makes the conflict even harder to resolve. Meanwhile, Ghost's relationship with Victoria continues growing stronger. Every moment together deepens the connection. Every conversation feels meaningful. Every interaction strengthens their emotional bond. For Ghost, Victoria represents possibility. She represents reinvention. She represents the version of himself he wishes existed. When he is with her, he doesn't feel like a criminal. He feels normal. And after years of living under pressure, normal begins to feel extraordinary. But there is a major problem. The relationship is built on a lie. Victoria doesn't know who Ghost really is. She doesn't know where his money comes from. She doesn't know the truth about the empire he controls. She doesn't know that the man she is falling for is connected to the very criminals she is trying to expose. The closer they become, the greater the risk. Because secrets become harder to maintain when emotions are involved. At home, Evelyn continues noticing changes. She sees Ghost investing more time in his business ambitions. More time away from home. More time focused on a future she doesn't fully understand. Evelyn has always accepted risk. She accepted the danger of the streets. She accepted the sacrifices required to build their empire. What she struggles to accept is uncertainty. And Ghost's transformation creates uncertainty everywhere. If he leaves the game, what happens to their family? What happens to their lifestyle? What happens to everything they worked for? These questions haunt her. The more Ghost talks about legitimacy, the more isolated Evelyn feels. Because legitimacy isn't just a career change. It's an identity change. And identity changes can destroy relationships. As the story progresses, the pressure continues mounting from every direction. Business problems remain unresolved. Enemies continue applying pressure. Trust remains fragile. And Ghost finds himself stretched thinner than ever before. One of the central themes of this story is sacrifice. Every dream requires sacrifice. Every ambition carries a cost. Ghost wants freedom, but freedom may cost him his marriage. It may cost him his friendship with Grayson. It may even cost him his empire. The question becomes whether that price is worth paying. By the end of Story 5, Ghost appears more determined than ever. He wants out. He wants a new life. He wants a future beyond crime. But determination alone doesn't guarantee success. Sometimes the harder you fight for change, the more resistance you encounter. And resistance is coming. Fast. When pressure increases, loyalty becomes visible. When things are easy, everyone appears supportive. Everyone appears trustworthy. Everyone appears committed. But true loyalty reveals itself during difficult moments. And difficult moments are becoming increasingly common in Ghost's world. The attacks against the organization continue creating instability. Every new problem increases tension. Every loss creates frustration. Every setback raises questions. People begin choosing sides. Some support Ghost's vision. Others support Grayson's approach. The divide isn't always obvious, but it exists, and Ghost can feel it growing. For years, he maintained authority through confidence and results. Now, uncertainty is weakening that authority. Not because people no longer respect him, but because they no longer understand his priorities. Ghost talks about legitimacy. Grayson talks about survival. The organization finds itself caught between those visions. Meanwhile, Victoria's investigation continues gaining momentum. The closer she gets to the truth, the greater the danger becomes. She begins connecting pieces of information. Patterns emerge. Relationships become clearer. The case is slowly taking shape. What makes this storyline so compelling is the contrast between Victoria's professional life and personal life. Professionally, she is pursuing justice. Personally, she is falling in love. Unfortunately, those two paths are leading toward the same man. Collision feels inevitable. Ghost understands this risk better than anyone. Yet he continues moving closer to Victoria. The emotional connection has become too strong to ignore. Every logical reason to walk away is overwhelmed by emotional desire. This is one of Ghost's greatest strengths and greatest weaknesses. He is intelligent enough to understand danger, but human enough to ignore it. And ignoring danger often comes with consequences. At home, Evelyn's frustration continues growing. She senses Ghost drifting away, not just physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. The partnership that once defined their relationship feels weaker. The trust feels damaged. The future feels uncertain. Evelyn isn't simply worried about another woman. She is worried about losing the man she thought she knew. Because Ghost is changing, and change can feel threatening, even when it is positive. Especially when it happens without your permission. Meanwhile, Grayson becomes increasingly aggressive. For Grayson, uncertainty creates frustration, and frustration often leads to action. Unlike Ghost, Grayson doesn't spend much time questioning himself. He sees problems. He attacks them. Simple, direct, effective, at least in the short term. But short-term solutions often create long-term problems. And Grayson's approach begins creating complications. His impulsiveness makes situations more dangerous. His emotions influence decisions. His patience continues shrinking. Ghost notices these changes, and he worries about where they may lead. The friendship between Ghost and Grayson remains one of the most important relationships in the series. They genuinely care about each other. They trust each other. They have survived countless challenges together. Yet, even the strongest friendships can be tested by different ambitions. Ghost wants transformation. Grayson wants stability. Ghost wants to leave. Grayson wants to stay. Neither man is completely wrong. And neither man is completely right. That complexity makes their conflict so truthful. Throughout the story, Ghost faces pressure from every angle. His criminal life demands commitment. His legitimate business demands attention. His family demands honesty. His relationship with Victoria demands vulnerability. No matter where he turns, someone needs something from him. The burden becomes overwhelming. And for perhaps the first time, Ghost begins realizing he may not be able to satisfy everyone. That realization is important, because Ghost has spent much of his life believing he could manage every situation, control every outcome, balance every responsibility. Story 6 challenges that belief. Sometimes balance isn't possible. Sometimes choices must be made, and every choice creates winners and losers. The title of the story, Who You With, captures this perfectly, because everyone in Ghost's world is being forced to choose. Choose loyalty, choose ambition, choose love, choose survival, choose the future they want. As the story approaches its conclusion, the tension becomes impossible to ignore. The organization remains unstable. Victoria remains dangerous without realizing it. Evelyn remains suspicious. Grayson remains volatile. And Ghost remains trapped. He is still chasing a dream, still pursuing legitimacy, still trying to build a better future. But the closer he gets to that future, the more fragile his present becomes. And that may be the greatest irony of all. Ghost wants freedom, yet every step toward freedom seems to create another prison. The story ends with uncertainty hanging over everything. Relationships are strained. Trust is fragile. Pressure is rising. And the consequences of Ghost's choices are beginning to appear. The storm is no longer approaching. The storm has arrived. If there is one word that defines the world of truth, it is loyalty. In the criminal underworld, loyalty is often considered more valuable than money, more valuable than truth, sometimes even more valuable than life itself. Because when your freedom is constantly at risk, trust becomes everything. But loyalty is complicated. People love to talk about loyalty when things are going well. The real test comes when pressure arrives. And by story 7, pressure is everywhere. Ghost's empire is under attack. His marriage is struggling. His friendship with Grayson is becoming increasingly strained. And Victoria's investigation continues moving closer to dangerous territory. Every relationship in Ghost's life is being tested. And every test carries consequences. The story begins with growing tension throughout Ghost's organization. Questions are spreading. People are becoming nervous. Nobody likes uncertainty, especially in a business where uncertainty can get people killed. For years, Ghost has been viewed as the unquestioned leader, the man with answers, the man with solutions, the man who always stayed one step ahead. Now even his supporters are beginning to wonder. Has Ghost lost focus? Has his desire for legitimacy weakened his commitment? Has he become distracted? These questions may seem unfair, but perception often matters more than reality. And perception is beginning to shift. Meanwhile, Grayson continues becoming more frustrated. Grayson has always been a man of action. He believes problems should be solved immediately. The longer uncertainty exists, the more uncomfortable he becomes. From Grayson's perspective, Ghost is overthinking everything, analyzing everything, delaying everything. Grayson believes their enemies should already be dealt with. The fact that they aren't only increases his frustration. Yet beneath Grayson's anger lies something deeper. Fear. Not fear of violence. Not fear of prison. Not fear of enemies. Fear of change. Grayson understands the world they built together. He understands the rules. He understands the risks. What he doesn't understand is the future Ghost keeps talking about. And people often fear what they don't understand. The possibility of losing Ghost terrifies Grayson more than he would ever admit. Because Ghost isn't just a business partner. He's family. He's the closest thing Grayson has to a brother. The idea of moving forward without him feels impossible. While Grayson struggles with those emotions, Ghost faces challenges of his own. His relationship with Victoria continues growing stronger. Yet every moment together increases the danger. Ghost knows the truth. He knows what would happen if Victoria discovered who he really is. He knows their relationship might end immediately. He knows she could become his enemy overnight. And yet he continues pursuing her. Because love has a way of making intelligent people behave irrationally. Ghost understands the risks. He simply chooses to ignore them. At least for now. Victoria? meanwhile, continues pursuing her investigation with determination. She believes she is helping remove dangerous criminals from the streets. She believes she is doing the right thing. And she is. The tragedy is that her professional success brings her closer to destroying the man she loves. Neither person fully understands how close they are to disaster. But disaster is approaching. Slowly, relentlessly, inevitably. Back at home, Evelyn's concerns become impossible to ignore. She sees Ghost changing. She sees his priorities shifting. And she sees their marriage weakening. For years, Evelyn and Ghost operated as a team. Now she feels increasingly alone, increasingly excluded, increasingly uncertain. The emotional distance between them continues growing. And emotional distance rarely remains emotional forever. Eventually it changes behavior, changes decisions, changes relationships. One of the most truthful themes in this story is the difference between loyalty and obligation. Are people loyal because they genuinely care, or because they benefit from the relationship? Ghost begins asking himself these questions. Who truly supports him? Who simply supports his truth? Who would remain loyal if everything disappeared tomorrow? The answers aren't always clear. As Story 7 approaches its conclusion, one thing becomes obvious. The foundation beneath Ghost's life is becoming unstable. Relationships that once seemed unbreakable now feel fragile. Trust that once felt automatic now feels uncertain. And every secret he carries continues increasing the pressure. The cracks are spreading, and the collapse feels closer than ever. Every dream eventually encounters reality. And in Story 8, reality finally catches up with Ghost. The title itself carries meaning. Best Laid Plans. It reflects a simple truth. No matter how carefully you plan your future, life often has different ideas. Ghost has spent the entire season trying to create a path out of the criminal world, trying to transform himself, trying to build something legitimate, trying to become Logan Pierce instead of Ghost. Now he must confront the consequences of that decision. The story opens with tension surrounding every aspect of his life. His business remains vulnerable. His marriage remains strained. His friendship with Grayson remains uncertain. His relationship with Victoria remains built on deception. Every major part of his life exists in a fragile state. Yet despite the challenges, Ghost remains determined. He still believes legitimacy is possible. He still believes he can create a better future. And perhaps most importantly, he still believes he can control the outcome. That belief drives many of his decisions. Unfortunately, control is often an illusion, especially when emotions become involved. Ghost continues investing time and energy into Truth Nightclub. The club represents hope. The club represents freedom. The club represents everything he wants his life to become. Every success at Truth strengthens his confidence. Every business opportunity reinforces his dream. For the first time in years, he can clearly. By the end of the story, Ghost remains trapped between two identities. Logan Pierce and Ghost, the businessman, and the kingpin, the dreamer, and the criminal. The conflict is far from over. In many ways, it has only just begun. Season 1 Character Analysis. Logan Ghost Pierce. Ghost is one of television's most fascinating protagonists because he isn't fighting one enemy. He's fighting himself. Throughout Season 1, Ghost struggles with identity. He wants legitimacy. He wants freedom. He wants a better future. But he also wants to keep everything he already has. His greatest strength is intelligence. His greatest weakness is believing he can control everything. Season 1 shows a man attempting to reinvent himself while remaining trapped by his own decisions. Grayson Carter. Grayson represents loyalty, passion, and danger. Unlike Ghost, Grayson doesn't dream about escaping the streets. The streets are his home. The criminal world provides purpose, identity, meaning. Grayson's loyalty to Ghost is genuine. But loyalty becomes complicated when friends begin wanting different things. Season 1 plants the seeds for future conflict by showing how differently Grayson and Ghost view the future. Evelyn Pierce. Evelyn is often misunderstood. She isn't simply Ghost's wife. She is part of the empire. She understands the sacrifices required to build their life. When Ghost begins changing, Evelyn feels threatened. Not because she dislikes growth, but because growth threatens the foundation of everything they built together. Her storyline is ultimately about fear, uncertainty, and survival. Victoria Reed. Victoria represents possibility. She represents the road not taken. The life Ghost might have lived if he had made different choices. Her relationship with Ghost provides some of the most emotional moments in Season 1. Yet it is also built on a devastating contradiction. She loves the man she believes Ghost is, not the man he actually is. That contradiction drives much of the season's tension. Review and conclusion. Season 1 of Truth succeeds because it isn't simply a crime drama. It is a story about choices. Every major character faces difficult decisions. Ghost chooses between legitimacy and crime. Grayson chooses between loyalty and frustration. Evelyn chooses between trust and suspicion. Victoria chooses between love and duty. These choices create conflict, and conflict drives the story. What makes Season 1 so effective is its balance. Combines action with emotion, crime with family drama, business with romance, violence with vulnerability. The result is a story that feels larger than a typical crime series. At its core, Truth asks a simple question. Can you truly escape who you are? Ghost believes the answer is yes. Season 1 suggests the answer may be far more complicated. Because the past never disappears. It waits, it follows, and eventually it demands to be confronted. Ghost spent the entire season chasing a dream of freedom, a dream of legitimacy, a dream of becoming someone new. But as Season 1 comes to an end, that dream remains just out of reach. And the closer Ghost gets to it, the more dangerous his world becomes. And that was the complete story of Truth Season 1. A season that introduced us to Ghost, Grayson, Evelyn, and Victoria while laying the foundation for one of television's most compelling crime dramas. But this was only the beginning. Because in Season 2, secrets become harder to hide, loyalties are pushed to their limits, and Ghost discovers that escaping the life he built may be far more dangerous than staying in it. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And let me know in the comments. Do you think Ghost should have left the drug game when he had the chance? Or was he destined to remain Ghost forever? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.